Shalom, I'm Doreen Ellen Bildotan, and please God, this discussion will become available after Shabbat goes out in the wildest parts of the wild, wild west. A few technical things. There may be some gurgling sounds in the background. That's the cooler. I've boosted the sound on this to maximum on this camera. I hope that problems people have told me about with sound have been resolved in so doing. And for some reason this camera makes my skin look very, very odd. No, I don't look that bad. Don't worry. As I understand Zionism, it is the right of the Jewish people to live in the land of Israel, to be self-determining, to pursue our lives in accordance with our culture and traditions, and to live in as much security as one can live in. I've never been someone who was a statist. I'm an old school anarchist, and not the George Soros school of anarchistic capitalism. I don't know what it is, and other freakish nonsense. A real anarchist. And I have long since, and especially since this war began, come to the conclusion that a state is not the best arrangement for the people of Israel. Zionism doesn't necessarily mean that we should have a state. It means we should be living in Israel, but not running a state. As the result of having a state, what's happening is we are immediately put in conflict with the other peoples that live in this area. Having a state means that the worst of the Jews are going to necessarily be the ones in power, because the wisest of the Jews, the meekest of the Jews, are not those who are wont to take on positions of authority. It is probably contradictory that one is a serious Torah scholar and some kind of an activist rabbi. If you're learning seriously, you don't take part in politics, which is essentially a form of idolatry. I don't believe that anyone who is really wise would seek a position in the Israeli judicial system, such as it is. Certainly not in politics, and not in business either. Not in big business, that is to say. They might open up a mom-and-pop operation, that yes, but they wouldn't get involved in the total demand that being a big business person requires of total commitment. So the state is weighing in favor of the worst of us, while the meek among us, the most scholarly among us, the wisest among us, the most gentle among us are not being able to impress Jewish development in a gentle kind of a way. Very often the meek and the poor and the helpless fall victim to the predatory Jewish personalities who are wont to pursue positions of authority and power. So having a state actually impedes the development of a true Jewish culture. So that part of Zionism is not supported by having a state. As it leads to so many conflicts, it is not in keeping with being in the land of Israel. There have always been Jews in the land of Israel. There are families here that hail back to the first temple times, 100 generations or so. And they never had any problems with the other peoples that live here because they didn't assume a position of arrogation of power. So there was no problem. There was what was called Hayishuv, the settlement before there was a state. The Jews and the Arabs lived side by side very peacefully. They managed a small economy. They had a medical system, an educational system, an ad hoc rabbinical judicial system, a health system. They had a postal system without stepping on anyone else's toes. And so I really do not think that a state best serves the Jews. It must also be noted, this is essential to take into account, that a large percentage of people who are called Palestinians are also genetically Jews. As such, they have many of the same personality characteristics as the Jews in Israel. That is to say, the meek people are farmers, small business people. They don't make waves. And those that you do hear about are the more problematic Jews. It also puts them in a situation in which the best that is in the Jews is not expressed, whereas the worst is. The desire of the Palestinian people to have a state of their own is the worst possible calamity that could befall them, and I hope that the wise among them are able to see that they don't want to have happen to them what happened to Israel as a result of having a state. Israel's biggest ally in the world is the United States of America. a country that was founded on genocide. Even as they appear to be speaking against the war with the Palestinians, which is a Jew-on-Jew war, there are still, most of the natives are living on reservations. To America's real way of thinking, their feeling is, look, we built ourselves on genocide. That's the name of the game. You want to have a state, you've got to get into you've got to get into the human sacrifice club. That's the way it's done. We had to pay that price to have what we have. You want to be a state, you want to be rich, you want to be powerful, you want to be influential. This is the way it's done. They don't know any other way. It is statehood built on human sacrifice. And the Jews are being dragged into that. And it's the worst possible thing that could ever happen to us. I think the best thing would be for an international body to come into this area and act in some kind of a, not supervisory, but maybe advisory board. You know, here in Israel, when a new group wants to found a new kibbutz, before they do, they go to an established kibbutz that is similar to the kibbutz that they want to establish, and they train on the established kibbutz for a year. Well, nobody trained us for statehood. We're thrown into it, and then Ben-Gurion had to make the decision of who he wanted to align with. He considered being an independent absolutely out of the question. And as he understood it, his choices were either aligning with America or with the Soviet Union, and he chose America. Ben-Gurion also had the idea that Israel should become a normal state, like every other state. He fully expected that there was going to be all kinds of corruption and so forth and so on. He had no problem with that, evidently. He considered that normalcy. It is not Jewish normalcy. We cannot live with it. It brings terrible things upon us. And it impedes the development of what's best in us. I think that there should be a board of countries overlooking Israel and Palestine as advisors. And that the state apparatus be dismantled. It is not healthy for the Jews to try to be running a state. I would love to see India's Modi come in. I mean, people that he would ask to be tasked with the job of coming here and being an advisor to us. I think he's a very wise man. And India does not have a tradition of anti-Semitism. I find that their views of what's going on in this area are very balanced and objective. I think that a lot of people in Israel look up, I think I do, look up to India as kind of like a big brother culturally. These are people who have been living on their own land for many, 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 many generations. And the modern state of India, I've seen it grow in my lifetime. It's nothing short of miraculous. Since gaining independence from the British Mandate, I think that a number of things that happened in Israel under the British Mandate might be recognized by India, and the negative consequences of it recognized and ameliorated. I just saw a video of countries that have the least levels of corruption. They tend to be Northern European countries. These are long democracies. The only problem that I see with that is that because they are Christian countries, they might be coming here with an already prejudiced view of who and what the Jews are, and that would come in with distortion. But if people who weren't particularly religious were sent here from those countries and could look at us subjectively, that might help greatly. We need some kind of guidance. We need some kind of help. We have made a real mess of having a state in short shrift. Our judicial system is likewise, it doesn't grace our tradition whatsoever. There are decisions taken by the judges. I don't know what to tell you. I can't even begin to understand how they got to the conclusions they did. Perhaps I'm not wise enough, but I don't think that that's the problem. I think they're really stupid decisions, and evil decisions in many cases. The decisions of people who are drunk on power. We desperately need help. We need to jettison the Talmud. I don't know anyone who has learned Talmud seriously, who has not been morally and emotionally severely damaged by it. It does indeed sharpens one's thinking. If one considers knowing how to be cagey a way of thinking, but it does nothing to soften the Jewish heart, to look at things morally, to, even if there are some moral teachings in it, and there are, it is poisoned with things like having sex with a 3-year-old child and breaking her hymen isn't any worse than poking her in the eye. It'll grow back. Once you've accepted that as part and parcel of your oral tradition, you are severely damaged. We have to come back to the original tradition of the Jewish people, the tradition that our holy progenitors knew, the judges, the prophets, and dismantle the whole pigum, what do you call it in English? You know, it's the buttressing. The whole structure, buttressing structure of the rabbinic world, the Talmud, it is absolute poison for the soul. Absolute poison. You don't need a lot of cyanide in your 100% pure organic orange juice to kill you. One little drop of some of the teachings that are in there, even if the rest of it is wholesome, which it's not, by the way, and it's not Torah, it would be enough to poison one's psyche and emotional structure. That has to be done away with. What we need to do is find a way to create an Israeli society that will allow the best of us, in us, to grow while not feeding the worst that's in us. And a state, in my humble and correct opinion, I learned that from Leibovich, Rabbi Leibovich. He's a wonderful person. Does quite the opposite. It encourages the predatory in us. It encourages the chutzpah in us. It encourages the arrogant in us. It encourages the belligerent in us. It rewards that. And the best that's in the Jews, the development of wisdom, the development of humility, the development of meekness. Not only does it not encourage that, it actually punishes that. I don't know that people are aware of the fact that the state of Israel is really very, very cruel to the Jews. If you're not on board with some kind of psychopathic party or organization or interest group or whatever it is, one can expect to suffer at their hands here. And to that purpose, I would reach out to those countries who, although they might have an army, haven't needed to use them in a long time. And I think that we should learn a lot from the Arabs, how they conduct their banking without taking interest. How do they do that? We're not allowed to take interest either. The banks were given some kind of a writ of legitimacy to take interest from people that they have absolutely no religious right, according to Torah, to take. The damage that was done is the result of so many children of poor people that were stolen and marketed for adoptions, marketed in institutions. There's an awful lot of compound epigenetic damage in the Jews, and we have to find a society, a way of doing things, and we need international help in order to do this. I don't think that Gutierrez, whatever his name is, from the UN, he's not objective or a friend of the Jewish people. I think that he's prejudiced against us. I think that we need I know that we need the objective opinions of people who can look at us honestly, without the filter of Christian anti-Semitism, and come in here and act as guides, people from successful countries that live in peace and don't have to be ready for war at every moment. Thank you for listening.